Hey, welcome everybody to this week's episode of The Blind Ambition with Jack Kelly. I'm Rick, and I'm here with Ravi Swaminathan, who's the founder and CEO of TaskHuman. TaskHuman is a mobile app that offers one-on-one sessions with live wellness coaches via video call. So basically, you can search for a topic and get instant support on all areas of your well-being. That's physical, mental, emotional, probably even more, at the time and place that work best for you. He's also a longtime tech executive with leadership roles at Freescale Semiconductor, SanDisk, and Wiser, which is really interesting because it's a computer vision company focused on video analytics using machine learning. And Ravi started his career as a software programmer at Ericsson. Thanks for coming on the show, Ravi.
Thank you for having me, Rick. And Jack, always good to see you.
My pleasure. Thanks. I'm glad for you to be here. So that was a great introduction. You've done definitely a lot. And maybe you could kind of elaborate a little bit more on TaskHuman. What's it about? Any new developments? So, and hopefully the people on Blind are using your services, your app, but if not, after this, they probably will.
Yeah, no, thanks for the opportunity again. So as Rick mentioned, TaskHuman is a mobile app that connects you instantly via video call to literally 1,000 different coaches in all around the world in 40 different countries in 1,000 different areas of your work and personal life. I mean, all of us have gone to Google, we use it, we love it. We go in and type what's on our mind, right? And then it gives you tons of articles and videos, but which is really useful, and we all love it. But at the end of the day, sometimes, you wish, man, I wish I could talk to a real life human being, right? Whether it's, I'm really stressed out, you can read all the articles and videos about how other people are coping up about it, or you can go to TaskHuman and get a real life person and talk to them about it. You can read about yoga or watch out for a yoga video on YouTube and work out to that, or you could go to TaskHuman and find a real life coach and instantly connect to them. They're probably hanging around waiting for you to call. Video call them, put the phone or tablet down where they can see you, and boom, you have a live instructor one-on-one just for you, right? So we built TaskHuman for those moments in life where articles and videos are just not the thing you want. You want and crave one-on-one, live human beings, right in front of you, and they happen to be on TaskHuman. And so it's the world's most comprehensive coaching network, and you can get help on anything from physical fitness, so yoga, kickboxing, Muay Thai, anything you can think of exercise-wise, strength coaches, all of that, to mental well-being. Again, we don't have doctors or clinicians on the platform, but we have a ton of coaches who can help you think through stress and family issues and this and that, all the way to spiritual. So we actually have pastors, ministers, chaplains on the platform. So Rick, if you ate Jack's cookie without his permission and you want to call and confess over the phone, you're Catholic, feel free to do that, right? So so it's really an awesome human network at your fingertips. I'll just summarize it by saying, Steve Jobs used to say we're putting 1,000 songs in your pocket with the first iPod, right? We're actually putting thousands of coaches in your pocket that you can instantly reach and access, so you feel like you are never, ever alone. Always be surrounded by people, and that dream team of people that you can engage with on all those different topics in your work and personal life. And to kind of address what Jack was saying, what's latest with the company, a few months ago, we added leadership coaching to the platform. So tons and tons of leadership coaches, whether you're first line, whether you're an aspiring leader, manager, to first line managers, to mid-level, to executives, now can all have instant, always on, year-round access to leadership coaches for those moments where you feel like, one of my employees just wants to quit. I just want to get a different perspective, talk to a coach, and maybe get a different perspective, a different headspace than where I was, right? So it really makes all those kinds of things possible. And I'm also pleased to announce that next week at Unleash in Vegas. So by the time this is published, it's probably going to be a done thing. but just letting your audience know that we are introducing sales coaching. And so for all those salespeople out there that want help on prospecting to all the way to negotiating and getting over buyer objections and things along those lines, we're now introducing sales coaches on the platform, and they'll available to you just like any other human being, any other expert is on task.
So Ravi, I'm going to ask a very selfish question. So if as a recruiter, I kind of coach, candidates. So if I wanted to get on the platform and act as a coach, how does it work? And just to be kind of less forthright, like how much money can you make as somebody who's on it? Hypothetically, if I was going to go on it, how much money would you make being a coach?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we'd love to have you on as a coach, but you do have to pass our interview process. So
okay,
you'll have to apply, and I'm sure you'll do swimmingly well. But there is an interview process. We obviously check for credentials, work experience in that area, all that stuff. To interviews with our interview team, which I'm pretty sure you'll pass with flying colors. Then we have a peer review and an audition process that I'm sure you'll pass with flying colors, after which we sit down and go, Jack, what are your coaching areas? I mean, what are the areas that you're passionate about that you're spending time on in your area? And if that's things like, you said HR, so I'm going to say things like, maybe it's recruiting, international candidates, or so we sort of break down what does HR mean into a set of skills that you're really passionate about and are good at coaching, and then we put that in the platform. And so when somebody reaches out to you, they're not reaching out to you as an HR expert, but rather on those topics that you've claimed expertise on. And so that's our overall process. It's served us really well, maintains the quality of the coaches on the platform, regardless of what country they come in from, right? All of that. And then, on the money side, it's going to come down to what you're available. So we're kind of like an Airbnb or a restaurant reservation or a hotel tonight kind of platform, but for human beings, right? If you look at the world today, the gig economy generally means driving. That's literally it, right? If you're a mom in Kansas and you're a yoga teacher, and you have 3 kids, and you only have a few hours every day that you want to coach on yoga, your only option today is maybe I gotta go and drive for DoorDash or Uber or whatever it is, right? With TaskHuman is the world's first platform where if you don't want to be an Uber driver, you can actually just be you. For the longest time, we always went out and recruited coaches saying, why be an Uber driver when you can be you? Right. And so now you can just raise your hand, just like Uber drivers do, and say, hey, I'm available. Somebody send me business. Right. And so on TaskHuman, you would just basically declare what your available time is. You can put available time for the next 90 days. So if you think that you're going to be available Saturday from 4 to 6 p.m. and that's all you want to coach, our job is to then fill that time with global consumer demand. And so what you make is going to come down to how much time you have and how you're able to monetize that time.
I love that, Jack. Just right on brand for our audience, going straight for what is your total comp, what is your TC.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm curious, Ravi, right? So you started your career as a software engineer, and then you moved on to these program management and corporate strategy roles. Can you walk us through how you made that transition?
Yeah, I've had a really interesting career, but really powered by a lot of the generosity of people. As you mentioned, I started off my career as a programmer at Ericsson back in the late 90s. And then I decided, programming isn't for me. And I was really good at it, but, I just said, okay, I think I like the business side of things. And so I ended up joining Dell as a program manager. And then later on, Motorola/Freescale as a program manager. Freescale was one of the divisions.
Wait, I don't mean to interrupt, but this is really interesting because we just had a guest the other day, similar thing where programmer, engineer, software engineer. This guy Morgan, he's what was it with Cisco, Rick?
Right.
And felt like, hey, I kind of like this business stuff way better. So what is that? Is that like if you're a programmer, you just have to have a certain mindset, but like if you go into product management or something else, it just opens up other sides of your brain and other, you could kind of contribute in different ways.
That's what that was the itch that I was trying to scratch, because I had been programming since I was 7 years old. Back, when I grew up, and so I had the Atari, and I had the Sinclair, which was like a ZX Spectrum, which is like a keyboard. You connect it to any kind of TV, and you code in basic.
So this is the difference between. So I don't know about you, Rick. Look, I had Atari, but I played Kaboom with Atari. You were doing software development. And do you remember that game, Kaboom?
So I kind of dating, we're all dating ourselves here, right? But that's just the environment that I grew up in, and so I've just been programming for a long time, and I never really thought that programming was going to be a career choice until I had to do it. And then I realized, I love it, but I really want to scratch a different itch, right? And I, this is where, the power of mentors, or you can call it the generosity of strangers, right? It's if somebody just said, hey, that guy is really bright, and I think we should take a chance on him and give him a program management job, right? And then I was always eager to learn, and so for a couple of years I did program management, then moved into product marketing because somebody said, hey, you're kind of done here.
Wait, Ravi, can I use, I'm sorry, like when you do like product management and project management, like what does that really entail?
Yeah, so with project management, so I was a project manager at Motorola / Freescale / one of their divisions. And that project was pretty complex. So I was actually working on the software for microcontrollers that power your fuel injection algorithms. So in your car, so GM, Ford, Daimler. So Freescale was the #1 chip maker for fuel injection microcontrollers, and so that was a $1 billion product. One of their best products out there, #1 market share globally. Every car manufacturer was using that stuff because they literally invented that product into existence. So Motorola was the first company, or Freescale, that semiconductor division, invented microcontrollers for transmission, fuel injection, and all that stuff. Right, so it's like a fascinating product line. And then here's a 22-year-old kid, or whatever I was at that time, that was actually responsible for program managing all of the software that powers that microcontroller. So when you press the gas to the pedal to the metal, if you will, it actually smoothly delivers all of that stuff, right? And so all of the software that powers the chip that then somebody like a GM or a Ford takes in and then builds their own things on top of it. So that's what I was responsible for program managing, meaning scope the project, get the software working with the hardware, and then we had team members literally in every time zone. I mean, gosh, 9 different time zones in the world. It was like a round the clock kind of development thing, because you had a team in Brazil, a team in Australia, a team in the UK, a team in Austin, Texas, where I was based at that time, and so on and so on. And so it's making sure all of this is running on time. So when you say you're delivering, the software for this chip that is going to launch on this date, everything actually happens on that date. So it's like a, 1.5 kind of development cycle for that project. So that's what program management is. Just it's all the expectation and the influence without the authority, because you don't manage anybody. You're just keeping things on track when you're expected to deliver.
It's so interesting though, Rick, because like I know a lot of people on the site want to see, hey, how can I pivot? What can I do? But the way you walked it through, Rick, tell me if you feel the same way. Like the light bulb went on, makes sense. Okay, so you have that software engineering background, so you have that skill set. But now, like, I want to do something different. And now by doing project management, you can kind of use your knowledge of engineering, because if you didn't have it, probably you couldn't do the job. But now you're developing a whole other skill stack by learning how to manage people, how to manage a program, how to make things work, how to motivate people. So now all of a sudden you're getting those skills to get you up into management kind of,
Exactly, and
or
without the
entrepreneurship.
authority, right? It's not like they're reporting to you on a management people level, which only happened for me later in the career, right? We'll get to that, but program management is a great way to, and a great place to cut your teeth, where you're developing the skill of influencing without the authority, right? Everybody knows you're a schmuck, right? You're a 22-year-old. Everybody else is 45 at Motorola Freescale back then, right? Like, it was one of the grandest institutions in semiconductor technology. Like, if you were an electrical engineering graduate, you wanted to come work for Motorola, right? And
times have changed. No offense to Motorola, but
that's the way it was, right? So nobody left. So here's a 22-year-old kid, sitting there, program managing and telling everybody to get their stuff together, right? So it really teaches you a lot, in terms of how do you manage and get people to execute on the project and do it in a humble way, but, keep the project on track, because that's your job, right? Make sure you deliver the stuff, but do it without the influence do it with influence, but rather without the authority, right? So that's what program management of any kind teaches you. And you're right. I think the fact that I had an engineering background provided a level of credibility, right? That really helps. Not to say that you absolutely need that. There are many awesome program managers that, bring a different skill set or bring different angles. But, for me, I think the key was that somebody took a chance and said, hey, yeah, I think this guy can do it. And this guy can manage this really complex long-term program, really important to the company, because we see something in it, right? And that's what got me to program management. So about 2 years later, when the product was ready to launch, I was the guy who knew the most about it, and that allowed me to then go in and say, maybe I should be the product marketer for this. So now you're moving from program management to product marketing, which involves, talking to a ton of customers, positioning the product for success and for sale, right? Now you're responsible for the P&L of the product, and you're making forecasts and deciding on the features, not just the implementation. So when you're in program management, somebody else gives you the feature set and you're responsible for the implementation, right? But on the product marketing side, you get to come up with the feature set, working with customers, and then hand it off to a good program manager to go execute on that, among other things. You also get to decide pricing of the product, and you're essentially responsible for the business targets, for that product, right? Whether it's number of customers or revenue for that product line.
And were you doing this by design? Because it seems each level you're picking up new skills and new abilities. Did you purposely do that, or it just somehow flowed?
It kind of flew. Yeah, I'd be lying if I said I was thoughtful about it. I think I was joking about this with you in another podcast, Jack, but sometimes you work on what you're passionate about, right? If you're lucky enough to know what you want to do, then by golly, be passionate about that and go do it. But for a lot of us, and this is certainly true for me, I'm just passionate about whatever I do. So I just bring the passion to whatever I'm doing. It's not that I found what I'm passionate about and I'm doing that. I'm just passionate about what I'm doing. My wife used to joke, and she's like, when we were living in Austin, to me, that was like the greatest city on the planet. Right? I was always going around saying, oh my God, this is like so cool, like the best place to live, right? And then I moved to California and Silicon Valley, and now, this is the best place to live, right? Just like, well, what happened to Austin? Well, I'm not living there anymore, right? So it's really, be passionate about what you do. And that's what got me through. Again, it's not the only philosophy to live by, but I do find that a lot of people are sitting there trying to find out what they're passionate about. And I don't think it's bad advice, right? Certainly, do that. If you know what you want to be passionate about, or you're on that discovery process of finding out what you're passionate about, kudos, right? Stay on the path, try to get there. But it's also okay if you don't know what you're passionate about, just be passionate about whatever you've been given, right? You got this opportunity, somebody took a chance on you, do really great at it. Right? Be really good at it. And that's what I tried to do in my career.
Do you think that made you stand out? when they see, here's this young guy, now maybe moved over, so maybe you're 25, 26, 27, and he comes in the office excited, motivated, pumped up, that energy is contagious. And then people around you see, hey, I want Ravi on my team because you do come in, bring the passion, bring the drive, the motivation.
Yeah.
Senior level people do that. You get maybe recruited away somewhere else because of that.
Yeah, no, and that's turned into a philosophy. You're spot on, right? That's exactly what happened, and that's why I got my unfair share of chances,
Yeah.
Across the career I've had, right? The 2 years that I spent in program management were followed by a couple of years in product marketing, and guess what? I got a chance to go to Germany for 4 years within Motorola, right? It was an expat assignment, right? And I went to Germany and took on a software role, right? It's the product management role. One of the GMs there noticed me in Germany, right? Noticed me and said, I want Ravi on my team in Munich, right? And so we uprooted the family, went to Munich, and then that led, did really well in that. And after a year and a half into that role, then I got promoted to chief of staff of the global sales and marketing, where I was helping running a 1,000-person sales team, 400 marketers, and 6 billion in revenue as chief of staff for the head of sales and marketing at that time. And so, yeah, I personally definitely think that when you can bring that kind of passion to whatever you're doing, and this now I've made, now that I'm CEO of the company, and later, and before this, when I was VP and GM at Sandus, I always used to tell people, look, think of the job that you've been given or that you're entering the company in as just the entry point, right? This isn't what you're going to be doing 10 years from now, probably not, but you're entering here. I want you to do your best. And this is something I've always asked for my team. In a big company, in a startup, it's different, but in a big company, I always just ask people, if you can just spend 18 months and give it your full go, you'll have my full support for whatever the hell you want to do next. Because guess who the chances are not going to go to is the guy that came in and didn't do well in his role and wants to do that fancy thing. Right? Because most of the time people come to you and go, I'm really not happy with this role, but that role, why am I not getting a chance for that? I'm really qualified, I deserve that role. The reality is anything that's shiny, there are 5 people that want to do the same thing. And who the chance is going to go to, right? The guy who's unhappy in his current role, didn't do a great job. Everybody knows he's not a great fit. Why would you take a chance on that person in putting him into this role versus maybe there's another person who demonstrated enthusiasm for their role, just did what phenomenal job at what they were given, and then is asking for that opportunity, that same shiny object, right? And that's what happens in a big company all the time is the shiny object roles are far few and in between. And you have to realize that you're competing. It's not about your qualifications, right? It's not about that. It's about if you have 2 people who are candidates, the one that's going to get it is the one with, that's demonstrated a level of loyalty and demonstrated a level of enthusiasm and passion for what they've been given.
That's so interesting. Rick, I'm curious about your insight from the folks on Blind. Do you find out through the conversations that they're applying what Ravi is saying, or maybe not so much in terms of saying, hey, I'm going to take this job. I'm going to give it the next 18 months. I'm just going to crush it, give it everything I can so I can get to the next level? Or do they just take it for granted? Hey, I'm this really, whiz bang, awesome software engineer, and I don't have to prove myself because I know I'm awesome, and they don't take that extra step. But what do you see, Rick?
Yeah, it's a good question because the blind community is very ambitious, and there are folks that are exactly kind of optimizing for passion and kind of getting promoted to the next level. They have a clear vision in mind of what they want to accomplish. And in their mind, they've also kind of figured out, oh, this is kind of the steps that I'm going to take. This is almost like a to-do list that I'm going to take to get there. And so Ravi, I kind of want to dig into your background. How do we get past that mold, that template feel of saying, oh, I want to be a director of engineering, and I want to really focus on, let's say, computer vision or machine learning. And so in order to do that, I see the other executives and this is what they've done. And so this is what I'm going to do. And your career journey is more organic, right? And how do you can walk us through how you identify an open door, an open opportunity that we might not expect, or that could get us somewhere in another way?
Yeah, I think it comes down to sort of the people aspect of things, right? And I don't mean to suggest that I didn't know what I wanted to do. I kind of had my own viewpoint of what was important to me, and I always expressed that as impact, right? And so, I only have 8 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours a day, whatever, right? Whatever you decide your day is, to have an impact. And it was very early on, it occurred to me that to have the maximum impact in a capitalist corporate structure, the person with the maximum impact is the person at the higher end of the food chain, right? I think you can get kind of relate to that. And so a lot of people come in and say, I want to be CEO, but they don't know, they can't articulate why, right? Like, why do you want to be CEO? And it's okay. I mean, whatever your articulation is, whether it's, I want to be the guy making the most money or having the most impact because that role has the most impact, right? Or, I want to deal with this, I want to be famous. Whatever your motivations are, right? It doesn't matter. It's yours, right? Nobody is judging you for it. And it's perfectly okay to have whatever motivation you have to want to be something, right? Want to be CEO. In this example, we're using CEO as an example, right? It could be director of engineering, it could be whatever you think, you want to do. So then the question is, okay, how do you articulate that, right? Do you understand what it takes to be there? And understand the chess moves that it needs to get there, right? A lot of people tend to think of like, okay, for director of engineering, I need to study computer engineering at MIT. I got to have a fancy degree. Then I got to start on the programming level. Then I need to become manager of programming, then senior manager of programming, then director of engineering, right? So whatever that thing is, you always modulate that based on some guy that is doing that job, right? Or some lady who is doing that job. And when you do that, you're basically setting yourself up equally for the one schmuck that got there that didn't deserve it, right? And then your mind immediately shifts to, if that moron can be a director of engineering, then I am way more qualified, not a moron, and I should be given that job right away. Somebody should just put that person out of their misery, fire them, and then make me that director of engineering, right? And the reality is, it doesn't work that way. Right? You cannot modulate yourself on the one schmuck that, that got there who didn't deserve it. You have to modulate that based on what we previously talked about, right? The higher up you go, the roles are just numerically less available, right? There might be 75 engineering, senior, one engineering level, one job, but there's probably only 4 director of engineering jobs. So all 75 people cannot follow the same path and the same template or whatever you think, the template is to get to the 4 spots. So then the question is, how can you differentiate yourself, right? And that's where the concept of managing up is something that, you have to be comfortable with, right? You have to be comfortable with knowing and working with the decision makers, because somebody has to take a chance on you for the very first time. You are the world's most brilliant, most qualified director of engineering to be. You know that, right? But somebody else needs to see it, because you don't get to appoint yourself to that role, right? And that's why I tell people ask me all the time, how do I become CEO? And I'm going, go file paperwork. You could be CEO tomorrow of your own company. Right? It's pretty easy. But if you want to be CEO of GE, there's a different path you need to take. Right, so you need to work with the board of directors and know somebody, and and those people know a lot of people like you, right? And then you have to stand out in that crowd, and then you get the job to be the CEO of GE, right? And so it's kind of similar to that is, don't pattern yourself after the one schmuck who got there who didn't deserve it. Try to think through from the perspective of the decision maker, and go and ask that question. Be bold, right? Especially, if you're a woman, go ask. Just go and ask, right? Just go to the boss. This is a story that is real. I used to go around and, in my 20s, go and ask, like, just, hey, do you have 15 minutes? Like, I'd see an executive's door open and I go, how did you get there? Right? You mean I just opened the door and I got it, would be one of the jokes, that they would say. But I would sit down and go, yeah, how did you get to your job? Right? How can I get to your job 15 years from now? Whatever, right? And so try to understand that, and then try to surround yourself and go get noticed by doing the right thing. You still have to do all the right things, right? There's no, like, again, don't pattern yourself after the schmuck who, got there the wrong way, right? You still have to do all the right things, but know that 15 other people want the same job, right? And so now stand out, right? And the way you can stand out is as simple as going in, asking for it, right? That's where a lot of people are just too shy, right? Like, they're like, oh, but if I tell my boss I want his job, then, maybe they will think less of me. And the answer is, it's never that, right? The answer is, chances are they're going to tell you what it takes. Chances are they'll at least know now that you want the job. Chances are they may think of you. That's the worst situation here, is they may actually think of you. They may actually tell you what it takes to get there, right? And so that's, that's the one piece of advice that even I wish I had when I was, sort of younger, is just don't be afraid. Just go and ask, right? It's okay to ask the president of the United States, how, she or he became the president of the United States, right? It's okay to ask. Right. And they may actually tell you. That's the danger, is they may actually tell you.
I'm kind of curious, because there's some folks that say, oh, well, like, this strategy or these tactics favor people that, are more extroverted or have a certain personality, or maybe they're like very similar in background to the leaders or the executives that they're asking permission from. There's a sense that, oh, is this a political office environment? Maybe it should be based on merit. Can you tell us kind of the difference between how when you're in a company or a culture that is very political versus just genuine or more authentic, we can say?
Yeah, and honestly, look, what company isn't political, right? If there are 16 people who want the job and only one gets it, the other 15 are going to be the ones who come and complain on Blind, Ambition podcasts, right? That's just the way it is. And that's the way it is, right? Just to keep it real, that is the way it is, right? And that is the law of numbers, is because there was only one job, right? One role, and there were a lot of people who wanted it. So I think the key is, like you said, it's not that it's based on merit or it should be or shouldn't be. It's really just understanding the decision maker's criteria, right? Do you understand what the decision maker wants, and do you feel like you put yourself in a situation where A, you're able to do it, and B, the decision maker or the makers know that you can do it. Right. And then despite that, if you lost it, then you just have to assume you lost to the better candidate most of the time. And sometimes there will be a schmuck who totally didn't deserve it that got it. But put yourself in the best possible spot, right? Don't assume, right, that that is why somebody got the job. Right. This is also why, sometimes, some woman gets the role as vice president, right? And women have dealt with this for the longest time, right? Some man gets the role as vice president that they wanted. And then you don't want to be the person that's sitting there and being bitter and going, I didn't get this job because I'm bald. I didn't get this job because I'm left-handed. I didn't get this job because I'm X, Y, and Z. I'm not dismissing any of the real things that are happening, in the world, because we know it's complex. But before you, accept that that is why it happened, I hope you can, in your own mind, right, feel comfortable that you gave it your best shot and that you gave yourself the best possible shot by doing all these other things, right? Too often I meet people, and it's not anything related to gender, right? I meet equally well, men who don't understand this, and also equal number of, women who don't understand this either. Like, oh, why shouldn't I get the job if that idiot's over there? I'm way better than that idiot, right? And it's very natural for us, regardless of our gender, to think like that, right? But at the end of the day, you can only control what you control, right? You can't control the other stuff. So just go to bed knowing that you were in total control of the opportunity, the mission. It's called mission send Rick to director of engineering job. That's the mission, right? You're in control of that mission. You, Rick, are in control of that mission, right? You, Jack, are in control of, President of the United States. So when you're campaigning, do the best job you can, right? Understand what it takes to get that job. Feel like you understand the path. Go spend time with the decision makers, all of that stuff. And then despite that, if you didn't get it here, chances are you're just, you're going to get it sometime soon. May not be in the same company, but chances are you repeat that process, you get really good at it, you understand, you rinse and repeat, chances are it's going to happen. Sometimes karma is not indicative of time, right? Sometimes you do the work now and get rewarded later.
Well,
right. And so it'll happen. And again, I don't want to sound like an idealistic guy that says just do the right thing and hope for the best, right? That's not what I'm saying.
No.
But do the right thing. And then you'll find that, you're getting really good at doing the right thing. And then chances are it'll just flip over.
So what made you decide to make that move to become a CEO and start your own company?
Yeah, by golly, I said, I will be CEO. And then I just said, the easiest way is, no, I'm just kidding. For me, TaskHuman has been sort of a 10-year journey. I wrote down the business plan for TaskHuman, 10 years before I started TaskHuman in, September 2017. And it's just a series of events that, just gave me tremendous conviction that this idea had come. And then, for me, when it was, time to leave Wiser, which was the previous company startup actually that I was in, I just knew in my heart that this is what I wanted to do. And actually dusted off, I'd written down the business plan in ink and paper back in the day. And so dusted it off and I said, it's really irrelevant. I learned everything I needed to learn to go execute on this. The timing is perfect. The technology finally existed because it does take a bit of AI to execute on this. And honestly, 10 years, before 2017 was 2007 and there wasn't a shitload of AI, right? So all of this, everything kind of pointed in this direction. And, it goes back to sort of, as I was thinking about what I wanted to do next, for me, the notion of having that impact, right? Impact has always been the primary criteria in which I've chosen projects to work on. And I felt like TaskHuman, if we executed on it, and as we executed on it, would have the most impact on people and on society of any other things that I was, considering, right? Any number of other hardware companies, software companies that I could have joined as VP and GM or SVP or running being CEO of a smaller, but more mature company, all of that. I just felt like the impact with TaskHuman was going to be the thing. And then I'm just one of those guys that if I feel once the light bulb kind of goes off in my head, I have horse vision. I don't look left, I don't look right. And I just go and manifest it. And so for me, I had kind of reached that stage with TaskHuman where like the end goal was so crystal clear in my head that it wasn't going to matter the journey or the path or the roads that I had to take to get to that destination. And so, so that's how we ended up with TaskHuman.
Yeah, you're making it sound easy, but it had to be tough. Spend your career in big companies, large global operations, and then saying to your spouse, your kids, your family, hey, I'm going to give this all up and I'm going to take a chance on TaskHuman. You make it sound like, hey, this was easy, but that had to be a tough decision. And a lot of people in Blind are working at large organizations and they harbor ambitions to say, maybe I could be that person who starts up this next cool company. So what was it like to make that move? What did you go through? Was it easy? Was it tough? Was everybody aboard? Did your family say, no, don't do it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I have to divulge that my wife and I are polar opposites. And so our risk appetites are polar opposites of each other. My wife is actually a VC at a company, and so she manages a $200 million AI fund. And so, for me, I've always been, I'm sort of the risk taker in literally everything. And my wife is the exact opposite, and we kind of balance each other, that way. And so when I went to her with this thing and I said, hey, I want to do this, and what do you think, right? And she was like, sure, if you want to do this, let's do it. But then, we went into sort of family mode where we're like, okay, that means somebody's got to be bringing in the bread, and making enough money and all that stuff. And so I was very lucky in that, we were dual income kind of family, and we could afford to have one person working while the other person was taking a massive risk. And so I've just been lucky in kind of having that partner support. And we also knew at that time that, if we own things, and physical possessions and things like that, we're probably not setting ourselves up for success. And so that's when we made the decision to go sell our house and cash out our 401k and all that stuff. And we ended up putting a chunk of that into
That's
the company.
a bold move. See, that's really betting on yourself, right? You're saying, all right, we're going to literally sell the house, right?
Yeah.
Literally sell the
Also
car.
being foolish, you can call it betting on yourself, whatever.
Yeah.
That's the big risk appetite, right? I just wasn't attached, and my wife isn't either. I mean, we're not attached to money. Not saying it's bad or right, that's just the way we are, right? And so we're not attached to material things either. Like literally, this is my wardrobe, right? It's just TaskHuman, and I have like 20 pieces of clothing. I do live in a nice house, right? But so I don't want to suggest that I'm a ramen founder, right? But at the end of the day, the thing is, we just didn't care about it, right? We're also in a place where it's Silicon Valley, where it's easy to take risks, right? Because you see everybody is doing something or the other, and this is a place that is built to be somewhat I would say risk forward, right? Unlike maybe other places in the country or in the world where there are societal implications and other stuff. I think of all the places you could be to like just instantly think you're going to quit your job and go do something, we just happen to be one of those places where it's not frowned upon. But the selling of the home and the all of that stuff was maybe a little bit more atypical, but that just reflects the appetite that we had. And we both my wife and I went into this saying, we want to give this company the maximum chance, this idea, right? And this thought, the maximum chance of success. And we wouldn't be doing that if you got a big mortgage and, all this other stuff that you got to pay for, right? And so we kind of went into that. That was sort of a joint family decision. And I'm just lucky that my wife understands these things really well, because she is a VC herself. Right, so it was a relatively easy conversation to say, let's just do it. And then we looked at each other and we said, okay, fine, we'll do it. We'll sell the house, list it, right? And so we ended up kind of, selling it, cashing out the 401k. And turns out we needed the money because early stage startups are tough to fund until you get to a level of proof point, right? Product market fit and all that stuff. I was also not a repeat entrepreneur that had successful exits, right? I'm not Travis Kalanick, I'm not any of those guys, right? So when you're a repeat entrepreneur, it's a little bit easier to raise money because you've done it before and you have a network. For me, I had to go and build that, and so it was really hard in the early days to raise money. We still did it, we still got it. It goes back to the generosity of strangers that Jack, I think you and I kind of mused on in our previous encounter. But I do have to thank, right, because you read a lot of bad news about Silicon Valley all the time, and it's certainly deserved. Most of it is true, but the good side of Silicon Valley is, I always like to tell the story of our first investor, a guy called Pankaj. So Pankaj is a pretty famous investor here, invested in Wish.com, Palantir, OpenGov. I mean, like so many hits back in the day. And so I go to his house, we're sitting around with a bunch of VCs, and I had just been invited to this thing somehow as a founder. And so I'm sitting next to Joe Lonsdale and, Pankaj and, all these guys. And we were just introducing each other. And so I got up there and said, hi, I'm Ravi. And, I'm thinking I just formed this company a few days ago, and, this is the idea. And I didn't have a deck or anything. I was just like speaking from the heart, it's casual dinner introduction, right? And then Pankaj says, oh, if that's what you're doing, he says, Betty, bring my checkbook. So Betty is his chief of staff, and it's like, she brings out the checkbook, and he's wrote down $25,000, and he said, here, I want to be your first investor.
I love that. Did that blow your mind when that happened? Like,
Yeah.
what?
Right?
That had to be amazing.
Yeah. And my wife now jokingly blames him. She's like, if you had told him no, maybe you would have a proper job by now, right? Yeah.
I thought you said your wife was going to say, wait, 25,000, that's it. It should be 250,000. Why did you tell him to round it up?
Right.
What's wrong with you, Ravi?
So that was sort of the kind of generosity of strangers, right? It's so many people taking chances on you, whether it's in my career, right? Or, when you put your heart and soul out there, right? When you're passionate about what you are doing, whether it's because, you found your passion and you're doing that, or you're just, like me, you're just passionate about what you do, people tend to take chances on you, right? And that's the good side. And you have a lot more Pankajs, out here in Silicon Valley than any other place. That's what makes this place special.
It is, right? It's like, Rick, right? It's like a lot of luck too, because you have a great point. In other countries, it's not the same mindset. Like if you fail, you go bankrupt, or your company didn't work, that's it. There's not a lot of, there's not a lot of empathy there. Here in the US, okay, all right, didn't work. All right, we'll start again. We'll do something else. And then if you're an ecosystem of Silicon Valley, you go, hey, I could always go back and be a project management, a VP of something, what have you. So it's different. So that's one of the cool things about America and the economy here, is that you can fail.
Yeah.
Unless, the only ones who's bad if like you do something horrible. But even then, like the Wolf of Wall Street guy, I keep seeing him pop up everywhere. That Jordan Belfort?
Yeah. No, it's the country of second chances.
So even when you do something horrible,
Americans are very forgiving, right? Of anything. You could cheat on your wife, you could be president of the United States and do whatever, you could be Donald Trump, Democrat or Republican, right? There is a lot of forgiveness, in this country, and that's what makes it amazing, right? Shout out to all of the great people of this country and elsewhere that are following your podcast, right? It's really, it's turning into an economy, right? Economy of forgiveness, and you get to make mistakes, and along your entrepreneurial journey, you're going to make a ton of mistakes, right? It's not about the failure. It's just about hopefully you're learning from those and hopefully not making the same mistake again. It's okay to make a different mistake the next time, right? But hopefully you're not making the same mistake again. And if you can follow that path, I think there's plenty of goodness that's going to come out of it at some point. And I always just like to remind people that, and myself too, at times that, the hardest I worked was when I was in college and I was going to school full time and working, full time and all that. And that was the shittiest I got paid, right? So it's not about, hard work being immediately rewarded, right? Because I think at that point in the late 90s, I was making $5.25 an hour for all my hard work, right? But but the point is that, as long as you're able to just live with a separation between the work and the reward, then it's just a question of how long do you tolerate that separation, right? Do you want to see the reward right then and recalibrate and go do different things so you can see the reward right then? Or, in an entrepreneurial journey like this, right? Sometimes it takes, not everybody is a scooter company that gets funded on day one, right? Some of us have to go and get 100 no's, and that's what it takes to fund your thing. And sometimes it takes frustratingly longer, but you just keep doing it because you're able to live with the separation between the hard work and the eventual reward of whatever, however you're framing success, right?
This is great because it's like the whole arc of like starting out, going from one type of position, from a software engineer to a project manager to product manager, to then coming, go a few steps to saying, hey, I'm going to sell everything, take a chance, bet on myself, start up something, make it happen. But also, Rick, if you notice this too, like the undercurrent too, is that positive attitude, that positive mindset. I love how you're saying you're manifesting your destiny, having that belief in yourself that you're going to make it happen. Those are big. That's a big thing to do. I don't know if everyone does that. But I think that's a good
belief
way
in
to succeed.
myself is one thing, but I think believing in the team, right? As you hire the second person and the 100th person, it's really, believing in the power of the team, right? It's using the team to manifest the idea. And that's what every company is, right? It's not, TaskHuman isn't unique in that, right? It's same at Salesforce, same at Microsoft, right? Just larger numbers of people, but it's really believing in the cause, right? Having your why. Right, and the why can't be I want to be famous or rich. If it is, that's okay. That's also a reasonable why. But if the why can be something rooted in the stuff that gets you up in the morning, whatever that is for you, right? For me, it's getting this product in front of 3 billion people, and helping them feel like they have an army of people at their fingertips. In an increasingly digital world where one-on-one connection is becoming more and more rare, right? And so for me, that's the why, as lame as that sounds, right? For your listeners that might go, hey, Ravi's full of shit, right? And probably so, but at the end of the day,
these things work.
have any kind of why, right? That gets you through the day.
But whatever, I guess, I think whenever you get like anyone gives positive advice, uplifting advice, it's easy to have eye rolls because like, oh, but there's truth to it and it works. And it's when you have affirmations, when you manifest things, when you believe in yourself, when you come into work being positive, motivated, it does have a good effect and it helps. Yeah. And people want to kind of poo-poo that, but it's real, it happens. And so
it goes back to that delay, right? Between what you're doing. Sometimes you may not see the result of your action, right? Of that positive attitude or whatever attitude, right? You could take any attitude you wanted to work, and sometimes you see an immediate reaction to that attitude, and sometimes the reaction is delayed, right? And that's sort of my viewpoint on karma, is sometimes the time delay is not obvious, but eventually things come back full circle.
So I think you got to go on the app yourself and be like a motivational speaker. What do you think, Rick? Right? You do come across that way.
Or I can just join one of your podcasts and
right.
Yeah, you definitely have the energy and you have that motivation. Maybe that's when you retire from all this, then you can be on your own app, and then you can be on the app and just give positive talks and get people motivated and feeling good about themselves.
Yeah. Long time away, retirement.
Well, thank goodness, because I came away from this conversation so excited, because just based on your story of just grit and determination, but also passion, right? And feeling confident in yourself and putting yourself out there and letting others take bets on you. I really appreciate your advice, Ravi.
No. I mean, I'm just sharing the experiences of many wise people that I've had a chance to work with, and certainly I've gone through a journey, but honestly, it's not unlike, what we all go through, right? Whether it's this aspect of our life or other aspects, there's a lot of, just common humanity here that, that we all have within us. And I'm just a big fan that, if you're aware of the journey and just go about it with your eyes wide open and just learn to recognize these markers, you're going to go on and do great things. And I'm pretty sure, that the community that's listening to this all have it within themselves. It's all there. Just find it and go do the things that make you happy, or be happy with the things that you do. Either way, find happiness.
That's great. I love it. I love it. And this is what people need to hear, especially now where things, let's be frank, are challenging. High inflation, maybe stagflation, maybe a recession, maybe World War III. So we're dealing with serious issues. Now tech sector has been downsizing, higher freezes. So you need that positivity. It's too easy to get negative, to get pessimistic, to let it get you down. So I think these kind of conversations are really important because it does make you say, wait, despite the challenges, you could still persevere, you could still succeed, you could still move forward in your career, you could still make things happen. So now more than ever, people need to hear what you've been saying. So this is awesome. This is so timely. This is perfect.
Thank you, guys.
So thank you.
I really appreciated the time.
Excellent.
And, it's been a pleasure. And thank you for having me again.
Our pleasure, Ravi. Well, thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Take care, my friend.
Great talking to you, Jack. Appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure. Bye-bye.